Hello, hey yo, it's me, Elmaxo, and I'm going to start with an announcement that I have made an email called elmaxo.dogsquad@gmail.com if you have any questions, any topics you want me to talk about, because I realized every week I don't necessarily have something to talk about. I usually do, but if I don't, I might go default to a question like that, and like, duh, you're copying Jay Schlatt. Well, Jay Schlatt copied people before him, so I'm just copying the cycle, and you guys can give me ideas to talk about, and I can tell you what I think about him. But no, today's one actually comes from my Discord from a guy called Just Some Dude, and I actually asked for some suggestions. And it was a simple message. He said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, growing up and how shit just changes. And I realized that's actually something I've been thinking about a lot this week, especially yesterday, actually. I had to drop my parents somewhere in the suburb we used to live in, where some of our family friends live. They were going to a dinner. And it was the first time I'd driven through that suburb in maybe a year and a half. No, just over a year. And I realized as I was driving through it how like just different my life was a year ago compared to where it is now. It just felt like where I used to live was just an old version of myself, and a lot of things have changed since I've moved house. And it kind of just hit me with this massive wave of emotion, a massive wave of memories, just how different things were. And honestly, in some aspects, just how much happier I kind of was a little bit. Now, don't get monk rest about that. Now, I'm going to talk about this guy's topic in a sec, but I want to just relay my personal experience that I kind of realized I had this kind of blissful happiness. Even though I wasn't where I was at, wanted to be in every regard. Like I wasn't making much money, I had a pizza delivery job. I was at uni, which I didn't really enjoy. But the one thing I had was like kind of all my relationships were fully intact. I still have a good friend. I don't want to sound like I've lost all my friends, but just things were a lot simpler, which sounds kind of corny and cringe, but just things were very stable for a while there after high school. It just hit me like I've sort of moved house, some things have happened, some things have changed, and it just kind of hit me like a tidal wave. And I sort of started thinking about how I was like nostalgic for a year and a half ago during lockdown, where I was like watching fucking Naruto and all this shit was nostalgic to me. And I was just thinking, is this really nostalgic to me? I kind of sat there and started to unpack it, and I was like, well, no, in almost every aspect, my life was kind of worse. Besides a few areas. But for the most part, I'm actually in a way better place I am now than I was a year and however long ago. And I think it's something important to unpack, because I feel like nostalgia is a crazy powerful thing. And I'll link this all back to the guy's comment again, but I just want to keep relaying this experience I've had lately. But I kind of sat down and I looked through my life and I was like, every measure I look at, I'm in a better place. Except like my relationships, as I said, but I won't unpack that. And I was kind of just like, why am I actually feeling nostalgic towards this? And it kind of reminded me of this idea about self-help. This idea of being present in the moment. Because I had no idea that I'd be looking back on a time where I don't think I was actually that happy in the moment and be nostalgic towards it. Just living in my old suburb, nothing much was really going on. It was kind of more simple. I would just walk around. It's very leafy and very nice suburb. I'd walk around and I was just nostalgic for all this stuff that at the time you just don't value at all. And that's kind of what I want to link this main idea about today. And that's just being kind of present in the moment. Because it got me thinking, right, like, why am I happy towards this time? Where in the moment, I was probably like a 6 out of 10 happiness, right? Or like satisfaction. So like, I just got me thinking, like, why am I happy about that? When I'm like every conceivable metric almost, I feel better now. And it just linked back to this idea of you really have to appreciate the moment you're in. Which isn't, or actually, I will say with kind of like a caveat, that's not necessarily like applicable to everyone. I think if you're having some like mental health issues, maybe you do need to look forward to the future. You can't really focus on the present moment because it's just not where you want it to be. And that's fair enough. But I want to say, if you're in a relatively stable, you're kind of in a, like just an sort of space, I think it's important to just appreciate the very moment. And this is something big. I recommend meditating, because this is something that very big meditating really kind of teaches you about being present. You sort of, if you've never meditated before, it's actually quite challenging if you've never done it before. It's not just sitting there and thinking. You actually have to sit there for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes and just focus on your breath and being present in the moment. You have to control it. When your thoughts start racing, you bring it back to the breath, right? And I just thought this idea of just being present, because one day, in 2 years, 3 years down the track, I'm probably going to move out and be on my own. And I'm probably going to look back at where I am now in this new suburb I'm at, which is very nice, mind you. It's just my life's very different now. But I think in 2 to 3 years, I'm probably going to look back and be like, damn, I'm nostalgic of that. And I think it's going to be this endless cycle. So I think the solution is just kind of appreciating the moment. And I think that's something really important. Something meditation teaches. I'd highly recommend meditating to people if you've never done it. It's kind of something that's very spiritually fulfilling, focusing on your breath. It is challenging, I'll admit, but just start small with it. But linking back to what this guy said, so growing up and how shit just changes. I mean, I'm only 20, but I've had quite a lot of change in the last just the last while. Change is something inevitable. I think you have to That's probably the first thing you have to wrap your head around, is that things are going to change. Some things you can control, and some things you can't. So I think one of probably the biggest things I could say is that if there's something out of your control which is changing, you kind of have to detach yourself from it a little bit. Like, you have to know that no matter what you do, it won't influence what's going to happen. But I think it's the things that you can control you really, really need to focus on as you get older. Because things will change rapidly. Your friendship groups will change. Your school will change. You might go to uni. You might go to high school. You might start having these new habit forms, new everything. Just like, life is a thing of constant changing, and it can be scary at times. It can be very scary at times when things change. But I think with every new dramatic change that comes in your life, it is especially negative change, or what you perceive to be negative change in the moment. I think those times where things are really bad, where things change for the worse, which I feel like is probably maybe a little bit what you're talking about in that question, maybe not, but I think change is good, especially negative change, because I think negative change can be the catalyst for so much good. It can really light the fire in you. It can really be what turns you around, as hard it is in the moment. But, with change, I'd really just say I think these things are inevitable. Like, your life is just going to go on a drastically, like, it's just, you can't predict what's going to happen. And if everything was the same, life wouldn't really be a journey. Wouldn't be what makes it cool. So I guess what I would say about change, with my perspective on the last, kind of being nostalgic about the last 3 years, is yes, things will change. You're going to grow up. You're going to become more of an adult. You're going to have more responsibilities. You're going to have more things. And it can be scary. But, with things like growing up, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? You're forfeiting a lot of security, a lot of safety, and you're kind of gaining access to a lot more freedom. And I know you've probably heard it a million times from, like, your parents. So you get to learn to drive. You can move out. And whilst it is daunting, I think it's just a fantastic opportunity for you to really do what you want, to find what you're passionate about, to hone a craft, to get really good at something. So what I would say is look at change, look at growing up, look at all these things through an optimistic lens. Try and put it in perspective. When bad things happen, it can suck. It can suck real bad. I definitely know it can be horrible. It can really drag you down. But when you do go through patches like that, when you're growing up and things are going wild around you, just try and keep it in perspective that you can kind of let these events, these sometimes fully tragic events, can kind of be the catalyst for change in the future. You might not be able to see it if it's like, it might be something really bad. I don't want to cast too much of a broad, what's the word? I don't want to give like a flat advice on bad things happening, because sometimes things can be just like truly tragic, like maybe a family member passing. But like, as hard as it can be in the moment, and I definitely would recommend like grieving. You definitely need to, like, if there's something like that, you definitely need to grieve and let it out. But I think once it comes from goes from the short term, it's weeks after something happened, to months after something happened, to years after something happened, you can really look back and actually realize that, hey, that event, you can almost look on it back with gratitude if you sort of use it in the right way. And this might sound kind of foreign to me. I remember I heard this idea back in March, actually, this idea of being grateful for like traumatic events, which sounds bizarre. If you're new to self-help, being grateful for something like, I don't know, maybe some trauma, some abuse when you were young. I thought it was bizarre, this idea of being grateful for it. But as I I've learned more about gratitude. I do this thing called gratitude journaling, which is really useful. You should look into it if you're interested. You can kind of meld these events in the past and sort of turn them into something really positive. And I think that's just a really powerful mindset to have, of turning negative experiences into positive. And I think it's something super valuable. But of course, it's way, way, way easier said than done, Sometimes life will just drag you down. And you kind of have to let it do that for a while. You just kind of have to absorb it all and just try and soldier through for a bit. But I really think that if you can at least in the back of your mind through things like that, just kind of know that this could be the fire. This could spark something. This could be the adversity which really molds your character into something more strong, someone who's more reliable, someone who's more honest. I really, really think that change, negative events as you grow up, can really be like these times for positive change in your life, and you don't necessarily appreciate that in the moment, which, fair enough. I mean, again, if it's like a family member passing, it's kind of hard to see how that can be a positive in the long term. But really, I implore you, if it is tragic, and I definitely think you should be grieving things like that. But when it comes to the long term, I think you can really look back at those types of things and be like, you can really see how it shaped your character. It makes you someone who's more emotionally mature. Maybe it was the catalyst for you doing something. Maybe you saw a relative die, and it was unexpected, and that kind of like taught you to value your life more, to take risks, to do the things you truly want to do, because you kind of realize how wild this life thing is. I'm getting on a real big tangent here, but like sometimes it can take horrible events like death and these nasty things to like kind of give you a positive mindset. It shows you the value of life, the fact you should value every moment, the fact you should live in the moment is what I'm trying to get at here. The fact you should try and look at every passing moment and be thankful for it as much as you can, because we have this gift called life and we should really make the most of it. So link back. What did Just Some Dude say? He said growing up and just how shit changes, and yes, shit will change. A lot of shit will change. But what I would recommend to you is that it's always an opportunity for something good. You can mold any experience in your life into something good. All adversity teaches you something. All pain, maybe not all pains. I'd say almost a lot of things that seem like really tragic and horrible in the moment can really be the catalyst for positive change. So, if you're going through something, you're having a tough time, that's really what I'd implore you to think about. Is that, this is bad right now, and you should let it make you feel bad. You should let those emotions flow. You should process it. But once you reach a stage where you're sort of starting to improve, you're not thinking about it as much, I think that's when you can really start to just make these experiences into something overwhelmingly positive. I'd be interested to see what people think about this idea of turning negative experiences into positive ones, about growing up, about change, and how all change is really just an opportunity for new good things. I've become a lot more of an optimist lately. I used to be quite the pessimist. I was quite cynical, but I've really sort of tried to look for the good in situations now. And that's what I implore you to do. When you're growing up, you're experiencing a lot of emotions, a lot of wild things. That's what I'd say to you. Is try to look for the good. Keep it in perspective. Keep it in the long term. What can you learn from this? Because when it comes to failure, when it comes to tragic events, I really think there's always something positive you can uncover from deep within it. And I'd implore you to keep that in perspective whilst you're grieving and whilst you're trying to maneuver it. Just know you can turn these negative experiences into something positive. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for the topic, because I've been thinking about nostalgia lately and living in the moment, being present, meditating. So it sparks something in my head. So I'd be interested to see what people have to say about this. That's all from me. Thank you for watching. Again, we've got the email. It'll be down in the description. Got the Discord if you want to join. And yeah, farewell, Elite Level Gamer.